So, fair warning, this is going to be a little bit different from the things you might be seeing this week, and it's going to propose a more holistic framing of how we might look at risk in digital products. So consider yourselves warned. I'm really honored and happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I think appropriately for Enigma, I'm going to be framing my talk today in the context of magic and how this metaphor of technology as magic is in fact hampering reasonable product safety measures and how we can overcome that. So first of all, show of hands, which I hope I can see. How many of you enjoy magicians and magic shows? This is the interactive portion. Quite a few smattering of hands. Okay, how many of you hate it? Very few, that's interesting. All right, well, this might be part of the problem here. So this is very, very interesting. I want you to think about magic. I'm going to use magic. I'm going to introduce 3 ways we think about magic when it comes to technology. And the first, of course, is magic as metaphor. And I blame Arthur C. Clarke for this. I used to have this quote on my business card in 2007, and I would say now that this is actually kind of a harmful framing for us. This is the first way we think about this. The second way to think about magic is really more literally with magic as entertainment, or as I like to call it, deliberate deception. It's a peculiar form of entertainment. We know we're being deceived, but we like it. And there's something in us, I think, that seems to want to believe the unbelievable. And maybe there's something funny in us. The spell is broken, though, when we understand the trick. Okay, so that's the second way we think about magic. The third way is, what about when the audience doesn't know they're being tricked? And I'm framing this more as the weaponization of magic. And it's important because in the context of the marketplace, we call this swindling. And it's been around for eons. And of course, the sort of poster child for this is snake oil salesmen. And their deliberate obfuscation and lack of product opacity was well known. I'd like to introduce you to a fellow. His name is Edward Bernays. He is was the nephew of Sigmund Freud. And he is the reason that we eat bacon at breakfast. He is largely recognized as the father of PR in the commercial sense and propaganda. He was hired by the American Tobacco Company in 1928 to deliberately get women to start smoking. And really what he has offered is a codified consumer manipulation at scale. And so he's his own kind of magician. In 1953, the tobacco industry started to experience a downturn in profits, in part due to health concerns. And in December of that year, the Cancer Research Journal published a study from Sloan Kettering that proved that tar from cigarettes was carcinogenic in mice. And so on December 14th and 15th, the heads of the tobacco industries companies got together at the Plaza Hotel in New York City to strategize on how to turn it around. Now, Bernays was not there, but his legacy and his influence continued on in this. And it was at this moment when the tobacco industry set out its decades-long deliberate deception of the American public about the risks of smoking. And you might not know this, but the tobacco industry was not held accountable until relatively recently, 2006. And this was a more than 1,600-page final decision from Judge Kessler, who wrote entire sections on the defendants devised and executed a scheme to defraud customers. The defendants have falsely denied, distorted, and minimized significant adverse health consequences of smoking for decades. And again, we see the 1953 moment. That's a very important moment of when this started. We can think about this as this last kind of industry magic. Or we can think about it, as I like to think about it, as a product safety resistance playbook. And it is a playbook, don't kid yourself, it is. And it's fought on several fronts. And in the interest of time, I'm not going through all of this. I do have a paper coming out with a lot of details that I'm going to gloss over today. But I want to hit on this top one: obfuscation, denial, and sowing doubt. Interestingly, this industry simultaneously, deliberately discredited science that they didn't like and funded and weaponized science that they liked. that favored their products, showed their products in a good light. So, and other industries have followed this. The automobile industry, asbestos, the energy industries, and what we see with global warming, they're following this playbook of all of these different tactics. Current processed food industry, sugar industry, and digital product industries. Us, we do this. And in fact, we have made refinements to this in the digital age. And again, I'm not going through all of these, but more details will be coming. This has been shaping and renovated along with the digital age. So product safety then, we can think about it as really exposing the trick, exposing the truth. So it does bear unpacking a little bit when we talk about product safety. A lot of people think that product safety is the elimination of all harms. It's not. It's not possible. That's not the goal. The goal, rather, is about navigating and minimizing harms to individuals and society. We want reasonably safe products. And I also suggest that product safety is a living, breathing process. It's not a one and done. And I have a kind of rough framing of how I like to think about this, and it's roughly chronological. So first of all, these are things that you want to do before the harm or the hazard is encountered. You want the awareness beforehand. What are the risks that might be there? Same thing with prevention. This happens before you encounter the risk or the hazard. When you're in the thick of it, though, it's really about mitigation. Like, how do we minimize this situation? It's bad, and now we need to minimize this. And then the last sort of kind of in this particular flow is root cause and accountability. We want to understand what the root causes were, and we want to hold somebody accountable. And we want maybe product changes. And it's interesting to look at this historically, once again, at non-digital products and what we see there, because there are four sort of key things that people go to when they look at root cause. And the very first one they go to is the consumer. Well, what did you do wrong, consumer? We see this. I'm going to show you a historical view of this in a moment. And next, they'll go to the usage environment. It's sort of like everything but the product. They'll go everywhere but the product on this. Third, they'll look at the manufacturing, the company itself, company behaviors themselves. What should we be doing differently? And then finally, begrudgingly, they might say, well, this product has some stuff. I remind you, tobacco industry knew this in the 30s and 40s. 2006 was the, real proof of that. The automobile industry is really kind of the poster child of kind of this playbook of blame the driver first. In the early days of automobiles, the police investigation centered only on the driver. They didn't look at the car at all, looking for the keys under the lamppost kind of thing. So the last thing in my process is measurement, and this is really ongoing, all the time ongoing measurement. There is a need for this, for empirical measurement, so that we have a common understanding of ground truth about two things: product composition and product behavior. Reaching this can take years, even decades. Looking back on several products, the average time for product safety regulations was 50 years after mass production. And so by my count, we are 42 years, very precisely 42 years, into the age of consumer digital products. And it's crucial that we push back on deliberate strategies of opacity and develop a firm empirical methodology for assessing digital product safety. Because digital products are a new ballgame. We need to move faster. We need to move at the pace of digital products. And I haven't said the dreaded AI word, but I'm gonna now. And yeah, it's sort of like a new set of tools, software tools, and it introduces some new stuff. But mostly what it does is it magnifies existing safety risks in digital products. It's kind of like, gasoline on a dumpster fire, I suggest. So I keep saying digital products. What are they? What am I talking about? I suggest that a project is a digital product when it has these three things: software-driven, internet-connected, has the ability to interact with human users. You have to have all of those things to be a digital product. And something funny about software, software is an animating force. It allows the product to behave autonomously or semi-autonomously according to how it's been coded. So it can behave, these digital products can behave. And since they can behave, they can harm. And this is different. This is different from non-digital products, for the most part. There are exceptions. So we have two actors now that contribute to product hazards and harms for digital products. On one end, we've got the product itself as an actor, and on the other, we've got the human being. And this is a very kind of, close your eyes and squint a little bit. It's not deliberately a spectrum, but it's a way to kind of think about and catalog the kinds of harms from one end of the product acting on its own accord as designed to the human behavior. So right about now, you're probably thinking, when is this lady ever going to say anything about cybersecurity? And it's now. And I'm going to say this, safety and security are not the same thing. And yesterday, Adam Shostak referenced, we bandy this word risk around, and I suggest that you cannot use that word without saying for whom. Because in cybersecurity, we are almost always talking about corporate risk. Risk according to the business's point of view. It ensures that the product behaves as intended. This is a great thing. We absolutely need this. Safety, however, is risk management from the human point of view. And when we think about product safety, it's really about ensuring that the product as designed isn't unreasonably harmful. In 2022, did a whole big presentation on comparing security and safety at RSA. You can look at that. There are a lot of commonalities, but there are a lot of differences. And it's really looking at the same space from two different perspectives. They're both very important. So if we look at digital product safety, it's concerned with everything that contributes to the behavior of the product. So it doesn't end at the physical boundaries of the product. It goes into the back-end software of the first party. It goes into the third-party software of all of the third-party components, of which sometimes we see hundreds of third-party software components. So product safety has matured with the industrial age, and I'm happy to say that there are a lot of mechanisms for improving product safety. And one important one is labels, because they demagic, they expose what's happening. And we do this at Internet Safety Labs. You can check them out at App Microscope. This is an important way that vendors can look at how we see it from the consumer point of view. And so we have a digital product safety playbook, the start of a digital product safety playbook with labels, ingredient labels for digital products. We should be able to know who are all the SDKs, third parties in that app. That should be in the App Store labels. It is not. I'm going to zip through this, but the other thing I want to put a big plug in for is machine-generated software behavior reporting. This is not rocket science. This is something we can do and should do, including machine-generated records of processing activities. Okay, so the last thing I want to point out here is that a lot of these come from the bottom up. They come from external sources, but engineers are the front line of product safety, and y'all have the power to make safer digital products. And this is our latest and greatest view on taxonomizing the buckets of digital harms and hazards in digital products. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but the point of this is that we really want to minimize risks on all of these. So, and you'll see here, I'm not using the word privacy or safety at all, or security at all, personal information leakage. And so there's two ways personal information gets leaked. One is by design, and we call that privacy engineering. The other way is by malicious third-party actors, and we call that security. But from the user's point of view, it's what's the risk that my data is being exposed? Okay, so to recap here, technology is not magic. Software is not magic. It's ongoing cumulative innovation. In fact, in the capitalistic world, technology is a progressive build of both business and scientific innovation. And it stands on the shoulders of everything that came before. So it's helpful for us to look back from time to time. Transparency is the necessary antidote, lest we become victims of weaponized magic, right? This is crucial to product safety. Safety and security aren't the same thing, but they're kin, they're related. And product safety, like technology, is living, breathing. It's ongoing cumulative measurement and innovation. I really sped through this. I thought I only had 1 minute left. All right, okay. Well, in the interest of, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back and spend a tiny bit more on this slide for y'all, because I have a couple more minutes. So I talked about the first one, the risks of personal information leakage, manipulation of the user. We hear dark pattern, deceptive patterns. There's lots of ways to manipulate the user. Because it's software and because it's interacting with humans, you can manipulate. Product addiction. We're gonna see more of this. This isn't gonna go away. It's only gonna get more and more, and we have to be more proactive, I think, in this industry to be more honest about assessing this. Unfair treatment of the user by automated decision making. Using the product for criminal activities. Yeah, you can't prevent all of that, but can you put reasonable guardrails in? You can write use cases, abuse cases, criminal use cases. You know, like, be more imaginative in how you do this. Also, the propagation and creation of misinformation, disinformation, and deepfakes. These are all big things. These are not trivial, but they're all part of a holistic view of digital product safety. Okay, so going back to where we were. So product safety is living. It's not a one and done. It lives right along with technology and the products. And you as engineers, as many of you are, you have the power to build safer digital products. And you know, we can do this together. We can create a digital product safety playbook together. So thank you for that. I hope I didn't go too fast through that, but you'll have access to the slides. So.